Hello and welcome to Metawatch for the 15th of December, where I'm going to be talking about all things UK meta, upcoming UK events, some of the previous UK events, as well as looking at some of the global win rates. And then I'm going to talk about a tactical tip for subscribers, so hang around if you're a subscriber for that, and then answer a patron priority question at the end. So with all that said, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Killteam 40k YouTube channel focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm here to help give you the tips and tricks that elevate every part of your Killteam experience. So no matter if you're a casual or a competitive player, there should be something here for you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's a few ways you can go about doing so. You can join the Patreon, where you get access to members only Discord, patron priority questions, early access to content, exclusive content, and tournament awards. Or if you find yourself buying Killteam goodies or hobby supplies, you can use one of our affiliate links in the description below, or discount codes with Crossfire Games and GG Prints. We're always keen to hear your thoughts and feedback, so don't leave that comment box empty. Let us know what you think. Once again, thanks for your support, and with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, so welcome to the Metawatch for the 15th of December. I've got 3 events to cover today. There's a catch-up event because I accidentally covered an event that was still ongoing. People were running an event in the evening time, and essentially I cut it at round 2, so I gave you a false report. So I'll cover that. It was one of the London events, and then I'll cover the 2 outstanding events that we have happened last weekend. So starting with the one that I said, the Tuesday tournament. So essentially it's a tournament that took place over multiple weeks, and they did multiple rounds, and at the end of it they did the full four round tournament, which is a really cool way of doing it. It's a good way of being able to use those local club nights to be able to essentially get more results, get more interesting things going on, and it's pretty cool, right? So I'll just cover off the top 3, although I will just talk to the top 5 maybe a little bit, because it is slightly concerning when it comes to maybe the power levels of certain teams. So let's talk first about in first place with Wolf Scouts is Guy Barton, going undefeated, winning all 4 games, the 17, 19, 15 and a 17, so pretty consistent scores. 15 is a little low, but not too bad. So some pretty consistent scores there across the board. But running Wolf Scouts, and obviously Guy we know is a very strong player. We know the Bartons from many tournament wins between them, and now picking up Wolf Scouts, guys managed to get to a pretty good victory. And there's some strong players in attendance, so it's not like it was an easy win or anything like that. But the point being that it's probably worth just commenting on is the fact that it is Wolf Scouts that we see dominating the meta at the moment. I think we sort of touched on this last week, and I'll just touch on it again this week. Essentially, this team is fast, so a 7-inch move base is really, really strong. And for those that don't really or haven't played with those sort of faster movement teams, it lets you stand off a lot further away from your enemy, which potentially means you're outside of their threat range altogether, and then be able to move in and still do damage. And particularly with these guys armed with like plasma pistols and that sort of thing, the fact that they can now do a move, dash and shoot, that 10-inch of threat range plus the 2 inches to be able to ignore cover gives you a 12-inch threat range on a plasma weapon, which is really strong. Or of course you can do a charge 9 inches, use a 1-inch control range, give you a 10-inch threat range, but that's a 10-inch threat range with a double kill potential, which is also really strong. So the ability to threaten that all the time with a 4/5 melee weapon and a 4/5 shooting weapon, both with lethal 5, is really good. So they're very, very powerful, they're very, very mobile, and I've obviously already talked about their durability in previous episodes, the ability to reduce piercing, the ability to reduce damage in melee, the ability to reduce attacks coming in, and the ability to do damage on the back of a fight action are all really, really strong, right? So you have to have a very, very strong melee operative to be able to kill these guys in melee. Most melee operatives in the game are not going to be able to achieve that. And if you're going to be shooting them, then you have to make sure that they're not obscured, they're probably on conceal, so you have to get close to them, so you have to then be able to match their threat range. Very few teams can match the threat range, as I said, of such a mobile team. So you have to be within their threat range and potentially within their double kill threat range to then be able to go and interact with them. So a really strong team. I mean, we haven't even talked about the silent guard sniper as well, which is also a really strong model for board control. This team has a lot of very cool abilities, to be honest, and I can totally understand why they're doing well. So Guy clearly piloting them very, very successfully. I should just say it is not uncommon to see Guy at the top of a tournament. So therefore, like in itself, if it was just Guy at the top with Wolf Scouts, it would be unusual to say, oh yeah, it's just Wolf Scouts. It's not just Wolf Scouts. You still need that player skill, you still need abilities, and that can be said for all these players, because there are players playing the same team that are struggling to make it work. That's not just to belittle them or anything like that. I'm just saying there's still player skill involved in all of these things, so please don't take away from the players doing so well with them. In second place, we have Anton, also with Wolf Scouts, going 3 wins and a single loss. Only a 10-point loss, so a kind of close, a slight amount of points to score on the loss, and then a 19, 17, and a 15. And then in third place is Kai, also Wolf Scouts, 3 wins and a single loss, scoring 8 points in that final loss. So top 3 places being taken by Wolf Scouts is pretty concerning, I would say. Not just because, as I said, like this team is strong, but it's also why players are gravitating towards that team. So why is it that competitive players think that taking that team is the most likely to give them competitive success? As I said, I think this team is a little bit too good in all areas. I don't think you can take away their movement stats. I think they're always going to be that fast, because that's just the theme, essentially, of the team. Phobos Marines are faster. You can't really affect the damage stats of the weapons, because they've got the weapons now, right? Combat knives are 4/5 in sort of Reaver blades, historically 4/5, so that can't really change. And plasma weapons are plasma weapons, so that can't really change either. So they're going to be fast, they're going to be killy. So I think from a balance perspective, like this team needs to be hitting the durability, right? I think that's the bit where it makes sense. And I would say, particularly if you're a melee team, that's where I'd like to see the durability of this team be hit. So I mean, I can't think of anything worse than being like Goremongers into this team, where you're having to spend Gore tanks just to get up to 4 attacks to try and do damage to these guys. Just like that just doesn't feel right. So I think in that instance, they should be fast, they should be killy, but they should not be durable, is my 2 cents. And then fourth place, we see Nemesis Claw with a strong performance, single loss and 3 wins. And I just wanted to comment on it because in fifth place you have Paolo with Wolf Scouts, also 3 wins and a single loss. So that is essentially the main top spots. So all the 3 wins and a single loss slots, all going to elites, but 4 of them going to Wolf Scouts. So that is where you say, okay, in this particular sample set, Wolf Scouts are a problem, and I know that this is a competitive group, and therefore there's a reason why they're jumping onto that team. But congratulations to Guy, Anton, and Kai for your first, second, and third place respectively. Next up is the Venator Tabletop Gaming, and unfortunately I couldn't go to this one, but it was a three round, I believe it was 20 players event. And we're going to see some familiar names. So in first place is Dan Barton, running Hearthkyn Salvagers. So this is the team that I was talking about previously when I saw particularly low win rates for them, and I just thought it didn't really seem to make much sense, to be honest. I feel like they have the tools that they need. But one of the things that I think they potentially struggle with in this current meta is in that particular matchup between a 7-inch movement team and a 5-inch movement team. It's just that threat mismatch, right? So if you're moving 5 inches and then you can dash and you can get 8, and the furthest you can reach is 10 inches away, for your move, dash, and shoot, you are going to be in the same threat range as them being able to charge you. So that's not a good place for salvagers to want to exist. So you don't necessarily want to be able to do that. And then if you sit outside of that range, well, then they're going to be able to move, dash, and shoot you, but you're not going to be able to interact with them. So you have to always be within their threat range for them to do anything to be able to hurt them, which kind of hurts a little bit, I believe. So you're giving up the risk of a double kill in order to be able to achieve single kills against this team. So that being said, doesn't stop Dan doing really well with them. So 21-point win, a 19-point win, and a 20-point win. So dropping only 3 points over the course of the tournament is amazing over 3 rounds. So congratulations, Dan, for your first place win with Hearthkyn Salvagers. In second place is Guy Barton again. So he's taken the warm up. He's done the practice matches. He's done a practice tournament down in London. He's taken it up to Venator and then put it straight to the test. And taken second place with 3 wins on the bounce, 16, 14, and 19. An awesome performance with Wolf Scouts. And then in third place is Jack Goodwin, going 2 wins and a single draw. So undefeated Jack Goodwin, but just missing out on that first, second place, coming in third with Canoptic Circle, showing that Canoptic Circle still have a lot of what the team needs to be able to succeed. It looks like he had a draw against Deathwatch, which I think is a good team to be able to match some of the durability mechanics that Canoptic Circle have, particularly if you're playing on like Into the Dark or Tomb World. But congratulations to Jack, Guy, and Dan for your performances at Venator Tabletop Gaming. And then finally, it's Yorkshire Killteam Jingle Bell Brawl, which was a 3-round event for 16 players. And in first place, so in the Sanctifiers, although they have been nerfed, they're definitely not out of the fight, is Declan Rhodes. Usually TOs a lot of these events, but also gets to play them, which is pretty cool. And coming in first place with Sanctifiers on a 20, 11, and a 19. So the 11-point win must have been a close game. But really, like outside of that, 2 very, very strong performances with 20 and 19 respectively. Sanctifiers are an interesting place. I think that they're a very methodical team now. You have to be like spot on with your game plan. You have to be spot on with what you're trying to do with your auras, and your management of them is really critical, because they've restricted now a lot of what you can do with that team, and therefore you're not able to just get those free wins potentially by having these huge overlapping auras and that sort of stuff. So now you have to have a game plan. You have to be really, really careful, and you have to make sure you use these things correctly, which is awesome to see. But it's good to see that Declan can still do that. And I think a lot of people were out there saying that Sanctifiers are now dead. I think maybe not. I think Sanctifiers are much harder to play, but they're certainly not dead. In second place with Inquisitorial Agents is Tom Robinson. So going back to his old staple, Tom's played Inquisition quite a bit this edition. It was a team that we sort of said, please can you play Inquisition when you go to WTC, because he's really good with them, and he's showing that essentially he is still good with them, coming in second place with a 20-point win, a 19-point win, and then a 13-point draw to the third place player with Nemesis Claw. So a fantastic run there, and getting second place is very well deserved. So congratulations, Tom, for taking third place with your Inquisitorial Agents. And then third place is Tom Shaw, again a name that we are familiar to. So running Nemclaw, back on the Nemclaw hype, but not taking the event win as a shock probably to his recent event successes. But taking third place is still very, very respectable, getting a podium with Nemesis Claw, showing that Nemesis Claw, even with the Vox Scream nerfs and all that sort of stuff, are still having a good time. So we've seen that they've come in a fourth place, we've seen them come in a third place. They can still place, they can still do well. Again, like, they're not out of it. It's just that you have to be a bit more reliant potentially on not on your Vox Scream as you were previously, and you have to learn to play around with different play styles. Now, I don't think Tom's play style was affected too much by the Vox Scream change, except potentially into those elite matchups, in my opinion. But that's just world according to Ryan. So anyway, those are the events that I think happened over the last 2 weeks. I clearly did it. Sorry, last week. I clearly have had a bit of a catch up and lots of stuff, so I might have missed some things. If I have missed your event and you're annoyed that I haven't given you a shout out from the UK, I only cover UK events in this particular section. But if I have missed your event, please let me know, and I will make sure to call it out next week. But I think it's useful just to show people where events are happening, and also just celebrate the community and the people that are doing these awesome things. I might try and see if I can do a bit of an odd one next, or in a week or two's time, where I focus maybe on all the wooden spoons or that sort of thing, and talk about it the other way around, because we often, I think, forget about the fact that the community is propped up by a whole bunch of other people. Although it is, I think, good to focus on who's winning, and therefore, inform people on what's good at the moment, but also potentially to look at what's losing, and why do we think that they're maybe not doing quite as well. Okay, into upcoming events then. If you're excited by the potential to play some Killteam, and you want to get out there and you want to make sure that you have opportunities to meet new people, throw some dice, get social, talk to people, experience Killteam, and just have an absolute blast. Then luckily there is a whole bunch of places where you can do exactly that. And if you go to this website, which is talkify.com/Killteam, KT events /pinboard, there's a whole bunch of local TOs who have added their events manually to this just by going on the submit event panel. They fill in the form, and a very kind Lincolnshire player has been adding these events as we go, which is awesome to see. And essentially, you can then go on here and you can find out about Killteam events happening local to you and get involved with it, right? So this is what it's all about. It's about trying to get more people playing more tournaments and more Killteam, because the benefit and beauty of Killteam is it's a social game, right? Like it's an interaction between two humans, and that's kind of what we're trying to promote, which is getting more people to go to these events just so that you have that interaction and less staying at home and worrying about tournaments or not thinking about it, but actually getting out and playing the game. So obviously next weekend, and the 20th of this weekend even, 20th of December is the Notts Killteam Christmas Clash Force. I'm going and playing in this event, so if you're there, come say hello. I'll be probably running Deathwatch, let's be honest, but I'll be there, so please do come say hello. If you're not there and you're further northwest, there's opportunity to play at Deadwood and Stockport. It's a 3-round Christmas event there on the same date, and then clearly there's a little bit of a gap because there's this thing called Christmas happening, so people like to spend some time playing Killteam at home with their families instead of playing it in a tournament scene, supposedly. But back in the new year, there's a whole bunch of events that you can then go to be able to celebrate. So 10th of January, you've got Deadwood event in Stockport. You have a London event with the Rolling Zeros on the 10th of January. The 11th of January is the UKTC Nottingham event, and that is the one that I am TOing, hence the little Turning Point Tactics logo. So again, if you want to come and get involved with that, you can do so. All the details for the event, I believe, are up to date and all in the event description. So if you click on this, it will tell you all about it, and you can find the links to the BCP and that sort of stuff. You won't be able to sign up because you buy tickets through the UKTC event link instead. So go to the UKTC website, buy your tickets, and then hopefully see me there. But we're a 3-round event. It'll be a bit more casual. It's trying to ease people into that new year. It's trying to get us just playing those reps and just shake off a bit of the Christmas fatigue and just get us back into the tournaments in early January. And then 17th of Jan, you have Brighton hosting a tournament. Now again, I'm going to try and get down to this. I'd like to try and hit up a few because I'm trying to see if I can do this one and then maybe Killteam. I'm trying to figure out the logistics of that, because getting to Edinburgh from mine is achievable by train, but I don't know if it's achievable for the start time. But that says that it's going to be a midday start, so I'm hoping that maybe that can make that work. So we'll see. But yeah, so Brighton on the 17th, Edinburgh on the 24th, and then Bristol has an event on the 31st, which I would go to, but I think before I found out about this one, I bought tickets for the London event on the 31st of Jan. And then you obviously have the 7th, Yorkshire Killteam start with theirs, and then 28th of Feb, and you have Killteam Leicester. 21st of Feb, you have UKTC Manchester. So there's loads of these events that are coming up. So, and then Kent, on the 21st of Feb. Point being is, there's a whole bunch of events, and you can find them all by going to talkify.com/Killteam events /pinboard, and I highly recommend that you get involved with it. And you might find that actually it's an opportunity to see a new city, a new town. It's an opportunity to meet new people that are playing Killteam and expand that community, which is what I think it's all about. So that's the sales pitch for tournaments. We're moving on to the global meta and the stats that are going on within it. So I'm just looking at classified only events and 3-round events, right? So this is 3-round or greater. I want to try and have the largest data set. I did note that someone had a comment on YouTube saying, hey, whilst the data set is quite small, does it make more sense to have essentially all teams? And I kind of looked through, and it does change it, like a few things a little bit, a few percentage points here and there, but not massively. And you essentially lose 800 games is what we lose. So it's up to you. What I would say is that I'll cover the classified and the 3-round events. If you would like to go and have a look at all the teams and see how that runs, you can obviously go to the website pretentiousplasticops.com, and it has it all there for you, and you can set your own filters and have a look at the way you want to do it. Now, all of this is hosted and created and run by Smiles, Lies and Gunfire. and he is an awesome dude that is doing this in essentially his free time. So I'm just presenting you the data and the work that someone else has gone through the extremely hard effort of collating and making it presentable in a amazing format. So thank you very much to him, and I'm just going to talk about it. So overperforming teams. This is not going to be a surprise to any of you, but the Wolf Scouts are out, I think, with one of the highest win rates we have ever seen. Outside potentially of, I think Void Dancers might have had a similar win rate at one point, but this is particularly high. So with a 65% win rate and a 26% or 27% really placing rate, Wolf Scouts are doing exceptionally well. So this is in the territory of like emergency nerf, I think, because they're just doing too well on win rates and too well on placing rates. I try to explain it each week why about win rates and placing rates. Just so people are aware, mirrors are removed, so they you don't see a reduction in the stats from mirrors, and ties are counted as halves. So this is kind of like a true win rate percentage. It's really hard to say. And the placing rate is essentially how likely you are to, over the course of a event, place. So get basically 3 and 1 or get that top 3, because we often don't have enough rounds in Killteam to have undefeated winners all the time, and you might end up with 2 or 3 undefeated winners for the size of the event. So that's why a placing rate is really useful. So the average for the placing rate is about 12.5%, and this essentially means that Wolf Scouts are doubling that and a bit. So they are more likely to win the majority of their games, and therefore they're also more likely to place, which is pretty terrifying. What's also, I guess, terrifying is just how like popular they are. So they are one of the most popular teams. You can see, I think the most popular teams that we have at the moment are Canoptech, Wolf Scouts, Mandrakes, Deathwatch, Nemesis Claw, Wreckers, and Raveners. Aquilins and Angels of Death coming in just below that. But it's just interesting to see, like, these are the teams that you're most likely to see on the tabletop, and therefore the teams that you should probably most likely be practiced against, or at least read their rules so you know what they're going to be able to do. But if you don't have a game plan to be able to beat Wolf Scouts, you're probably in for a shock, because they have a game plan to beat you, right? So one to be aware of. Then Canoptech, obviously in second place, maintaining that above 60% win rate, just holding on to it, and a 21% placing rate, doing really well here. Just maintain that consistency going forwards, which is pretty impressive to see. And then Mandrakes are on a 58.9, let's call it 59% win rate, and a 21.46% placing rate. So interestingly, they have a slightly lower win rate, but their placing rate is slightly higher. So more people are getting to the end of tournaments or placing in tournaments, not by much, only 0.46%, but worth to note, than Canoptech, but they're winning on average less games. Again, I think that's just like a point to note, is that's really strong. Like this team is like, just because Wolf Scouts are on 65 doesn't mean that Mandrakes being on 59 is necessarily a good thing, right? Like they should probably also be receiving a nerf, and that will be on my Christmas wish list from GW, is to see some nerfs for these teams that are doing just slightly too well, in my opinion. And then in fourth place is Felgore, again with a 57.9% win rate, so we're talking essentially 58%, and a 21.6% placing rate. So again, my thoughts are they're just doing a little bit too strong, and therefore probably should be getting hit with a nerf. So not quite sure what that would be, but I think they need it. I think one of their main issues is probably their frenzy mechanic. I mean, interestingly, so if you're a shooting team and you don't have access to Lethal 5 or something like that, or you don't have access to Severe, removing frenzy goats can be really hard. But currently, like, a lot of the teams that are going into them do have access to this, so they're kind of like unworried or unfazed about it. Or if you're good enough to do 10 damage in melee quite easily, potentially in like 2 hits or something like this. But for a lot of teams, I think they just struggle to answer Felgore, particularly if you're trying to shoot them and you don't have Severe or grudge tokens or whatever, some method of guaranteeing crits to be able to remove them when you shoot them. So top 5, just sneaking in 5th place is Brew Brothers. And so with a pretty average win rate, right? So like 52.6% is pretty fine. Like that's just like, yeah, whatever. But with a pretty strong placing rate. So that kind of means that actually this team is winning more than you think it would, right? Like it's actually placing well, which probably means that you see here a bit of a split in players, maybe. And I would usually say that's because it's a harder team to play. In that instance, if you have a high placing rate, but a low win rate, means that a lot of people can't figure it out. But the person that is doing consistently quite well with them is kind of how I view it. But that's not purist, but it's kind of how I view it. But good to see Brew Brothers continuing to be strong within the meta. I think they could do with a little knock, but I'm not really too sure what you would do with them, right? Like because as it stands, like right, so this to me says that they're a hard team to play, but if you play them well, you do well with them. So it's kind of like how would you nerf that, which doesn't make it like harder for the team to play, because that's just gonna like reduce this win rate, but keep this the same. So maybe they don't need a nerf. Is maybe that's the answer. They don't need a nerf. We just need to make other teams better, which is kind of what we're hoping for. But that's the top 5. So some pretty strong performers in there. I would say that you really have sort of 4 problems here. Brew Brothers probably not really a problem, but I would say there is definitely these 4 are looking a little bit like they're like Icarus at the moment. They're probably flying a little bit too close to the sun, and they probably need that balanced state Eye of Sauron to maybe just have a quick glance at them and bring them into line. Underperforming teams. I'm trying to think who's worthy to talk about here, because what I'll do is I'll talk about the teams that are popular and underperforming, because I think there's like I'll do this bit first. So I think there's a tendency in our community to, if we don't think a team is good, we don't play it. And if we don't play it and we don't think it's good, therefore the win rates kind of go down, because there's only a few people that are playing it, and maybe they're just more casual players that just really like the vibe or the aesthetic of the team, and they're not playing it because they think it's good. They're playing it because they just want to play, right? Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Like that's totally cool, and it should be encouraged. And therefore they're just going, I just like the vibe, or I just want to play this team, or this is the only team I have potentially, right? And they just want to get the games in. And therefore, if the team's not performing well, it might just be because like there's no one good playing it, or it might be because no one good's playing it because the team isn't good, right? So like, how do you find that out? So like with a lot of these, like Higher Tech is has a really small player base, like only 80 games. Now they haven't won anything, which is pretty concerning. They've only got a 30% win rate, which is also pretty concerning. But like, how do you know that that's the case? Whereas like Khaine, they've recently got a few more games, and suddenly they're up to a 50% win rate. So maybe they're okay, but again, they're only winning like 8% of or placing at 8%, which is actually really low. So this is kind of like an interesting thing of like, people don't think they're good, therefore they don't play them, or is it because people don't play them because they're not very good? Does that make sense? So anyway, but I think what I'll talk about is Blades of Khaine, because I think it's an interesting discussion point. So a few months ago, if you said, hey, what's a really strong team that needs a nerf? I probably would have said Blades of Khaine. And you think about it and you go like, but actually how do you go about nerfing Blades of Khaine? Like, what would you change in their kit if you were to nerf them? They were doing pretty well. They were solidly 55%. They were doing pretty good on placings. They were doing all right. And they're quite a popular team, like they're getting a lot of games in, whatever. But they're just not like necessarily like doing that well. And at the moment, their placings is really low, and their win rate is really low. So this makes you wonder, like, did all of the Elven players jump onto Mandrakes? Like, was there a bunch of players that were saying, hey, I really like elves, I really do this, and they were doing the best they can with Blades of Khaine. They're getting a 55% win rate, they're doing okay on placings, and then someone unlocked the secret source of Mandrakes, and suddenly, boom, everyone's onto Mandrakes because they had them. Or is it just that they have picked up other teams? Or is it that potentially some of these teams that have come out are just a perfect counter? I think, for me, it feels like one of the reasons that they're doing worse at the moment is Wolf Scouts. So, but I don't actually know that. So let's have a look-see. So if we go on to Wolf Scouts, because I am interested, and I want to know how good they are against Blades of Khaine. It's not good. It's not a good look. So I hypothetically thought, hey, I reckon Wolf Scouts are good into Blades of Khaine. They've played 8 games against Blades of Khaine, which is actually not a huge amount, but they have won all 8, right? So yes, they are pretty good into Blades of Khaine. But like we can have a look at a bit of a analysis, right? So if you go on here, this is why I find these tools so interesting, because you can just actually have a look and see like what does Blades of Khaine do well against and what do Blades of Khaine do poorly against. So here we go. So Blades of Khaine are doing well against Hierotech, Hand of the Archon, Ratlings, Stealth Suits, Raveners, Farstalkers, all this sort of stuff. They're doing great against all of this. And then they start doing not so well against Brew Brothers, Deathwatch, Angels of Death, which I am surprised about actually, but I guess it kind of makes sense. There's quite a lot of 4-5 damage in there. Mandrakes are doing pretty well against them with a 34% win rate against Mandrakes. Wreckers, I'm surprised about, but Wreckers doing well. Canoptic, Nemesis Claw, Sanctifiers, Vespid, Felgore, Goremongers, yep, that kind of tracks with what I'm expecting. And then interestingly, things like Salvagers, Inquisition, and Wolf Scouts are just the 0 wins against any of these teams. Now this is I'm very surprised to see Salvagers getting a 100% win rate, but again, small data sets, right? But you can kind of see how these data sets are being formed, and how you can then analyze where a team is potentially being deficient or not. Because in my mind, I'm like, hey, I think Wolf Scouts would be good against Blades of Khaine, and then you say, oh, they are. But also in my mind, I wouldn't have said that I thought Wreckers were particularly good against Blades of Khaine. But hey, here we are. They played 16 games, they've only won 5, they've drawn 1, they've lost 10. So this is how I find the data interesting, and how we can inform a little bit of our opinion with data. Now, clearly, it's not entirely objective. You have to have some subjectivity to it, because different players, different skill levels, all that sort of stuff. There is always a caveat, right? I'm not saying that we should just blindly follow the stats, but it's just interesting to be able to see. So Blades of Khaine, not doing too well. I think they've got some natural predators that have entered the meta. I think potentially some of their top players have moved off of the team, and now as a result, they are now trying to find their way in a new meta. Maybe it's not going quite so well as a result. Also, a popular team that's not doing too well is Plague Marines. So only with a 42% win rate and a 6% placing rate. So again, this to me says that like at the top tables, these teams are struggling, right? So they're not getting to the end. Like they're winning like 2 out of 3 events, maybe a bit more sometimes. They're sort of like a 2-2. They're 2-1 maybe, but they're not getting the oomph to be able to get them across the line and actually place an event. And again, it's like why potentially are Plague Marines struggling? And I think it's because Plague Marines focus on having a lot of durability and a lot of movement restrictions. And if you have a lot of teams that are very fast and are very good at getting around your durability mechanics, then you're going to have trouble, right? So the fact that Wreckers are popular is problematic for them, because the Wreckers do huge amounts of damage and essentially can get through the damage reductions that Plague Marines have. Vespid do huge amounts of damage, and they get around the damage reduction that they have as well. So it's just interesting to see how these things, and it's the same with Deathwatch to be fair, and Nemesis Claw, like all of these teams have the means of doing the damage that they need to be able to get through Plague Marines, and I think Plague Marines struggle to do the damage output in comparison straight back to them. So another team that's not doing too well. And then Angels of Death, 44% win rate, 9.6% placing rate. So again, struggling again with that placing and win rate, but a really popular team. So there's a potential part of this with the Angels of Death and the Plague Marines. The other thing to consider is clearly they are the starter set, right? So a lot of new players, potentially brand new to the game, are picking up that team, and maybe they're taking them to their first tournament, and as a result, you might see a reduction in averages potentially. That's an option. I know people say that drives a lot of these stats, and when people look at, say, Deathwatch, they'll say this is an artificially low number because there's a lot of games and therefore a lot of them are being played by new players, and therefore they're dragging the average down. But what I would say about these teams is that they're quite easy to play. So I feel like if you're at a casual event and you're doing like 3 rounds and you're playing like an elite team, you should be able to pick up their key skills pretty easily. I would say that I think Angels of Death are easier to play than Plague Marines, and therefore I'm not surprised to see them with a higher higher placing than Plague Marines, and like, but the difficulty with these teams is, well, that's not so true with Plague Marines, but definitely for Angels of Death is I think they don't surprise anyone. Like, I think Angels of Death have a real issue where they don't have any sort of like secret sauce that catches people out. It's like, hey, I've got 6 Marines. They do exactly what you think 6 Marines do, and I'm going to struggle to you know, not gotcha you, but not like not have a really cool play that it's like, hey, I've comboed this with this to be able to make you not see this thing happening, right? Like, they don't have any sort of like 4 APL moves or anything like this, or they don't have the double counteract that Deathwatch have to be able to really make that an impactful last activation. Potentially, like with Deathwatch, you could charge, fight, shoot someone, and that was your last activation. Your opponent does one thing, and then you shoot someone else, and you smoke grenade or whatever, and you're just like, it feels like you have a Custodes for a moment, and this team doesn't really have that. I won't linger too much on the bottom teams, but I just want to be interested to talk about a few of those points going forwards. Let me know in the comments if there's a team that you particularly want me to cover on the weaker side, on that stuff, and we can do a deep dive and try and figure out why that team is not performing, and we'll go through these matchups and say, hey, let's look at this team, let's look at their matchups and try and figure out, is that like, does that track with the stats, does that track with our mentality, what would I think it would be or not. So let me know what you guys think. I can also do it with strong teams as well if that's something that interests you. Okay, that is a very quick run through the overall meta. I've tried to make it a little bit faster this time to focus on some other bits. But the next thing I'm going to do is a tactical tip. So this is going to be a subscriber only benefit. So if you're not a subscriber to the channel, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to leave because it's for subscribers only now, and all it takes is just for you to move your mouse down, click the subscribe button, and then you can help the channel support, and you can help share this to more people and get more people involved in Killteam. So that's all I'm asking, and I'd be really appreciative if you did that. But I can't stop you from leaving. So if you are here, you get this for free, but shame on you. Anyway, subscribe benefit. Tactical tip is going to be understand your odds of success and bias the odds in your favor, right? So there's a really cool tool that I use that I'm going to show you. And again, not created by me. There's far smarter people out there that have created these tools, and I just borrow them. But it's called the Killteam calculator. So whenever I'm trying to figure out the maths of stuff, right, I'm trying to say, oh, you know, what is the likelihood of this thing happening? I can go to the Killteam calculator. I can stick those odds in, and I can then figure out what the likelihood is of these things occurring. And the reason why it's important is because a lot of people, I think, they do their actions, and for whatever reason, they don't necessarily know the likelihood of their actions occurring. And so I always say, like, you know, I had a chat with Dan Barton the other day, and he said, you'd be purposeful, you should have your intentions, you understand what you're doing. He did a great podcast the other day talking to Ace and Netra. I think they're some of the best Spanish players, really switched on dudes, and they were talking about having a plan, right? And I think a key part of having a plan is understanding the likelihood of your plan working, and therefore potentially what you need to do as a redundancy to have that plan. So how many redundancies you have is probably going to be based upon the likelihood of success of a thing happening. So an example being is, let's say you're trying to kill a model with a certain weapon. So you say, yep, my melter gun is going to go kill this marine. You need to have the odds of that happening. If it's like a 30% chance of it happening, well, you know that you need to have at least someone else to cover that off, because 2/3 of the time it ain't going to happen, right? So you should be ready to be able to back that up with someone else. But in your own risk levels that you maintain, you can figure out how many levels of redundancy you want. So if you're a very safe and very cautious player for your game plan, you might want to have 2. So you might go, okay, well, I've got this guy, the melter gun, he's going to do that, but I'm actually going to back him up with a plasma gun because that's my next option. I'm going to back it up with this guy, he's a melee dude, that's my next option. But you want to understand the odds of that. You want to understand the average damage, you want to understand how much you're doing, because maybe you realise that, okay, well, based on the average damage, a melee option is going to be really good because I can guarantee I've got accurate and I've got severe or whatever, and therefore I can guarantee that I'll be able to do 5 damage. And therefore, if I can do averagely 10 damage to this marine, then I know that actually having that 5 damage back up is pretty much what I need for the majority of cases to be able to deliver what I need. And that's where you can bias your odds and have your favour. So I'm going to take some random examples, right? So because it's just want to show you how the tools work. So what I've done here is I've got the stats for a Rattling Bomber, right? So Rattling Bomber, pretty cool guy. He's got 5 attacks on his bomb, right? He hits on 3s with that bomb. It's 4/5 damage, so normal damage 4, crit damage of 5. It does have piercing 1, but other than that, it doesn't really have any key rules that are relevant really. But maybe you want to spend some CP or something like that. But it's just a 4/5 damage, piercing 1, 5 attack weapon, which is pretty strong. And then over here, I've got a Intercessor Sergeant. So he's 15 wounds base. He's got 3 up save. He's got 3 defense dice. So you can dial in all these as you need to, whatever's required, right? But he's 15 wounds because he's a sergeant. He doesn't have an invul save. That means you'd ignore the piercing. He's not in cover because the weapon has saturate, so you'd be able to get rid of that. But if he did have cover, you'd be able to do that. Or if you could retain 2, you could do that. Now here, I've factored in the fact that the Angels of Death player has the ability to turn a normal into a crit with a CP, right? So I'm expecting that if I want this to happen and they have a CP left, well, they're probably going to use it to keep that guy alive, right? So I'm going to factor that into my maths to make sure I'm aware of what's going on. And then potentially they have something like Hardy. So you go, oh, actually these guys have got on a 5+, they're going to get a crit save, right? And I know that they've got balanced, right? So they've got a CP for the reroll, whatever, and so therefore with the CP reroll, they've got the Hardy crit save, and they've got this for 2 CP. They're going to do this, and therefore my kill chance, it was 4.75%. So you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty unlikely, but maybe I want to try and add this, like to stack this into my favor, right? So you can then select here balance, double balance, ceaseless, relentless, all that sort of stuff, and you can choose what you want to do to be able to see how that affects your odds, right? So in this instance, in this situation too, I've gone for balanced, and you can see now that it's a 10% chance. You go, okay, well that's now a 10% chance of me killing that guy, but if I was to spend 2 CP, I'll make it a 14% chance. So maybe in your mind you're going, that's probably not worth it. But you can also do this reverse, right? So let's say you knew that the bomber was injured. You had an injured Rattling Bomber, and he was coming to attack your Intercessor Sergeant, who had all of these buffs, and you had 2 CP, and you'd be like, well, the chances of that happening is 1.54%. So that's actually quite low, right? So I would be happy in most games to take that risk. Now, this is a separate tangent because I'm going to let you know now that this is a 100% success rate against me multiple times, and the Rattling Bomber is a nemesis that will crush my absolute soul. And this was not a random event. This always happens, but kill percent of 1.54%. So it also means, and this is the side benefit, is that when you do get diced, you get to be really salty about it and really specific about just how unlikely it was to happen to you. And on 1.54% of the time, your Intercessor Sergeant with all his buffs will die. Anyway, I'm jesting. But the point being is, it's useful to understand the odds, right? Because let's say that you're not going against someone who's like this, and they don't actually have all these abilities, and it's a regular Intercessor, and you're not injured, and you've spent 2 CP. You've got a 33% chance of doing it, but you know that your average damage is going to be 12. So you go, okay, I'm going to average 12 damage here, and therefore I'm going to need to allocate 3 more damage or 2 more damage to be able to kill this guy. If it's a regular Intercessor, or if it's a Sergeant, 3 more damage to be able to kill him, and therefore having a melee operative standing by to be able to shoot him is pretty good, or having a sniper to be able to do those mortal wounds is pretty good. I should be able to kill it with a backup redundancy. So the average damage is really useful as well. So using a combination of these to understand your likelihood of actually killing them in a single activation, and the likelihood of that how much damage you're going to do, means that you can actually predict and create those game plans to say, my guy's going to do this, and then the second guy is going to come in and solve this. Because for horde teams, most of the time, you need 2 models to take down an elite, right? So you need to have at least one backup option, but you want to make sure the backup option you choose is the correct one, right? So in this instance, averagely I'm doing 12 damage, so I'm going to get 3 hits through is what it's saying. So therefore, in that instance, I probably just need to allocate like a sniper shot to it. I don't need to try and allocate a big hard hitting weapon, because it would be overkill, right? So my tank buster, my big shot can focus on someone else. I don't necessarily want to have that guy as the redundancy for this shot, because I'd be wasting my threat opportunities, and I can be better covering more of the board by having them used elsewhere. Now, also what they do is they do the same for melee. So you can go in here and you can choose what you want your tactic to be, right? So in this instance, I've got a Khorne warrior who is 5 attacks. You've got CP for balance. You get severe. They get +1 damage, but I'm going against the icon arc from the Chaos Cults, right? So I believe he's 7 or 8 wounds. I don't think it matters too much. He has 3 attacks. He hits on 4s. He's 2/3 damage, and they get accurate 1. So you got accurate 1 down here. You can put that in. You can put in rerolls if you want, and you can say, cool. This is all my stats on 14 wounds. I've got my balance reroll. In fact, I ended up doing a double balance reroll. Again, this is not necessarily specific to an example, but it is specific to an example to me. And 5 attacks, hit on 3s, 4/5, severe, all that sort of stuff. And you can go through and you can say, oh, actually, I've got that ability to have a fail go to a norm if I take D3 damage, so I can put that on there as well. And I can select my strategy, right? So I can do maximum damage to enemy. Basically, I want to kill them, or I want to try and parry out and live. I want to just strike, or I just want to parry. But essentially, what is the best odds for me to be able to kill this guy? Fighter B, clearly they're just going to be trying to survive, so they want to do min damage to themselves. And you can go, okay, cool. Well, the odds of me dying is 0. This guy doesn't have enough damage to be able to do the damage needed to be able to kill this guy. So therefore, averagely, I'm gonna take 1.81 damage, and have 12 wounds remaining. So take 2 damage, have 12 wounds remaining is what it's saying. And then the chance of Fighter B dying is 99.31%. So I'm pretty happy with those odds, right? But clearly, you can dial all these things up and down. So maybe there's something else. But obviously, in this instance, he lived, and therefore I can be really salty that 0.7% of the time he can live. But as I said, this is a generic example that could happen to anyone, but it happened to me, and therefore you get to be really salty with the specifics of it. Clearly, I'm jesting again. The whole point of this is to show you that you can actually look at the odds of something happening and make a game plan based around it, and then in the bar chat afterwards, get really, really specific about why it didn't work out. Try to be a little bit jovial. Hopefully that made sense. Saltiness is a joke. Don't be salty. That was a tactical tip though. Hopefully it was useful. Use that website. Use those tools. There are other tools available. Feel free to use them. You can use a calculator on your phone if you're super intelligent. You can use ChatGPT to be able to do some of it as well. I'm not advocating for AI. I'm not advocating for whatever. I'm advocating for your freedom of choice. Do whatever you want to do, but consider using stats to be able to figure out how to better inform yourself of the likelihood of your successes. As I said, 100% success rate that bomber has been killing any of my models, and whenever a Khorne legionary charges someone, he will fail to kill it. So it is just stats. It is just likelihood. There is always the chance it doesn't work out, but you should at least be aware of it. Okay, that was a tactical tip. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, consider dropping me a like. You've maybe got access to a new tool there, and you have access to a new mentality when it comes to understanding your kill team odds. Next up is the Patreon priority question. So for those who don't know, I do run a Patreon. The link for it is in the description below. It costs £3 a month, and you get access to the Discord. You get access to ad-free videos. You get access to this Patreon priority question, and sometimes you get stuff early. So there's loads of cool benefits to it, and I really appreciate the patrons for supporting me. It means I can do a whole bunch of other stuff, which I wouldn't necessarily be able to do normally. So I really do appreciate you all supporting the channel. Anyway, one of the questions from the patrons is this, which is, are we in a power creep meta? And it's a really interesting question, because I think we have to be careful of like forging our own narrative when it comes to these things, because I think like you get like a bit of groupthink, right? So if one person starts saying something, and then you start looking for data to corroborate it, or you start trying to you then say it to someone else, and then suddenly it's now 2 people saying it and 3 people saying it, whatever. You get this like kind of group thing where everyone then sort of agrees, yeah, we're definitely this is definitely a thing, it's definitely happening, and then you start saying, look, the evidence is clear, right? We can go to the stats, and I can show you just how strong right now Wolf Scouts are and Knoptech, and because these two teams are the strongest team in the game, therefore we must be in a power creep meta because these two teams have just been released and they're the strongest team in the game, and therefore there is no other explanation other than we're in a power creep meta, right? Because of these data points. And I think I understand that, and this is not going to be a popular opinion from me to say that I don't actually think we are, and even if we are, then I think actually it's less problematic than people necessarily think. I've got a few counter arguments to this, but I know there are people right now firing up their fingertips to me how much of a moron I am, because how can you not possibly think we're in a power creep meta? Look how strong Wolf Scouts are, they've just come out, and look how strong Knoptech are, they've just come out, and therefore, you know, no team is even playable unless you play these two top teams. I hear you, I do, but I just want to give you some, I guess, counterpoints to consider and throw around when you're playing this with your opponents, because I think we have to be careful, as you know, I'm particularly careful as a content creator, that we don't forge these narratives, and you have to be responsible a little bit for what I put out, right? Because if I tell people all the time that the game's rubbish and it's negative and there's loads of things to worry about and you know it's all doom and gloom, then really that's just going to drive people away from the game, right? And this is a game that I love and it's a game that I enjoy, and I think actually it does a whole bunch of good for the community, and I want to do a video on that separately as to why I think it's so good, but I have to be careful about that narrative, because if I do just say, yep, we're power creep, it's all really bad, and the Games Workshop are deliberately doing it just to sell more models, whatever, then you know it's a really negative opinion to hold, and it's going to push people away from the game, which is not what I want. So anyway, this is the counter narrative, right? So buckle up, team. We're going in, and I'm going to brace myself for the comments at the end of it. But please, it's just an opinion, right? Like, everyone's entitled to their own opinions. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying this is a differing view to the current state of the game. All right. So since this edition is launched, we have had 14 new teams, right? So that's what I'm tracking. So for those that aren't tracking, so we had Aquilans, Vespid, Angels of Death and Plague Marines, the starter set. We had Rattlings and Wrecker Crew, Goremongers, Sanctifiers, Raveners, Battleclade, Deathwatch, Canoptech, the XV26 Stealth Suits, and Wolf Scouts. That's what I'm tracking so far. So I might be wrong. There might be a team there that I've forgotten, but I'm pretty sure those are the teams that we've had this edition that have been released. That's 14 teams that have been released. And everyone's going to say, yep, we have all these problematic teams, and it's awful because you're going to say we've had Wolf Scouts that are completely broken. And I agree, Wolf Scouts are too strong and they are broken. So there you go. I agree with that. We've had Canoptech Circle, and they're too strong and they're broken. And I agree, they are too strong and they are broken. And they're going to say, and we've had Sanctifiers, and Sanctifiers are too strong and they're broken. And I agree, they were too strong and they're broken. And I think those three teams were the really broken teams. Now we can touch on Goremongers, but I think they're actually just problematic, not broken, in my opinion, which is opinion that has changed. I mean, we could say that even if we say that Goremongers are broken, that's full. But let's just say they're not, because I think a lot of teams beat Goremongers. I think there's just some teams that can't, and therefore I view them as a problematic team. They're not like a dominating the meta team. They're on, well, what are Goremongers on right now when it comes to win percentages? Goremongers are on a 46% win rate, so they're not doing great right now. I know they've had some nerfs and all that sort of stuff, but they okay, maybe they're broken. Let's say they are. Outside of that, I don't think any of the teams that have come out have been broken. I think there are some teams that you could say are strong, and I'll talk through some of those teams that I think are strong. I think there's quite a few teams that you would say are average, and I think there are quite a few teams that you say are weak. And I think if we actually look at the percentage split, they're pretty consistent. So, Wolf Scouts, Canoptech, Sanctifiers, and let's chuck Goremongers in, right? Those four teams, 30% of the new teams you can say are broken. And I'm on the fence with Goremongers personally, but let's for the sake of argument that they are broken. 4 teams. For strong teams, I think Deathwatch are strong. I think they're good. They're a strong team. I don't think they're broken. I think they're good. I think they're doing well, but they're doing what, currently a 51% win rate. They're winning 13% events, so placing 13% of the time, so slightly above average, like only just. So Deathwatch are strong. Raveners, I would say, are strong, but right now they're not doing particularly great. They're on a 49% win rate and they're on a 13% placement rate, so they're good, but they're not not groundbreaking. And I'm again, like, I would say Aquilans are strong. And I'm trying to think where Aquilans are on the win rate right now. When they came out, they seem to be pretty good, but now on like a 46% win rate and a 12% placing, so basically just holding on to being good, and like maybe average. But like other than that, the rest of the teams not doing that great. So I'm gonna say like 20% of teams are strong that have come out. So 20% are strong. So we've had 30% are broken, 20% are strong. Let's get the average teams. So XV26, they're doing pretty average, right? Like they're fine. They're not breaking the game. They don't suck. They're just kind of average. So the new XV26, just kind of average. The Wrecker Crew, they're average. Like they're not breaking the game. They're not like, I mean, you could maybe say they're strong, but like, are they as strong as Deathwatch? Maybe, like, but they're kind of average. Like they're not going crazy or anything like that. Plague Marines, average. Like again, they're right now not doing too great, but they've had some nerfs. But when they came out, they were kind of average. Like, but they're meh, whatever, right? And then finally, you have like the weak teams, which I think is actually more than you think. So Vespid, when they came out, they're pretty weak, and they've had a lot of buffs to try and get them to the point where they're now average. But they were definitely weak to begin with. Angel of Death, they've been pretty, like, I mean, maybe they started off average, but they're definitely weak now. But like, they were kind of always weak. I think like they were the weakest elite team. They've not done too well. Rattlings, they're pretty weak when they came out, and they've had to have a lot of buffs to be able to get them to the point where they're now at best average. And Battleclade, again, pretty weak to be honest when they came out, and they need a lot of help to be able. They're not there yet to really even be average, to be honest. So, and it depends where you stick Goremongers. I mean, I personally think Goremongers, when you look at their like win rate and placing rates and that sort of stuff, I think they're just a very problematic team, and therefore they're kind of like an average team because they get beaten by elites, but they just don't get beaten by other stuff. But anyway, the point being is that like if you break this all down, you have roughly 30% of teams that have come out have been broken, like 20% have been strong, like 30% have been average, and then like 20-30% have been weak. So my point being is that like this isn't, they're all just getting progressively crazy stronger, right? Like because Wolf Scouts came out with stealth suits, so that was a broken team with an average team. Canoptek came out with Deathwatch, so that was like a broken team with a strong team, although kind of average in my opinion. Raveners, they were strong, but they came out with Battleclade, which were kind of weak. Like Sanctifiers, they were broken, but they came out with Goremongers, which was just problematic, which I guess kind of like is the worst box set of all of them. And then we're into Wrecker Crew, who are average, and Rattlings, who are weak. Plague Marines, who are average, and Angels of Death, who are weak. Vespid, who are weak, and Aquilans, who are maybe strong. So like, my point being is that I think like if you look at all of it over the course of a season, I don't think it's that bad. And I think we are looking at like the latest team to drop and go, this is power creep. And we're sort of ignoring the fact that at the same time that this team is dropped, everyone is saying, oh, but XV26s are a bit boring. Like, I kind of wish they were stronger. Like, it's like, well, like, I don't think it is power creep, like, in that sense, because if they were both really strong, and again, I think potentially XV26 are kind of problematic in their own way with the way the stealth fields work, but they're not broken. Like, they're not like, I don't think people are just going to be smashing up events saying, like, you guys can't even win against this team. And I think we're sort of focusing on these issues, and I think because Deathwatch is so popular, I think people are saying they're broken, but I really sort of challenge that narrative because they're not winning anywhere near as much as people would say they are, and their win rates are pretty low. Their placing rates are pretty average. So like, Again, I get that I'm biased, but let's say that's just observer bias. So even if we say Deathwatch are broken, Canoptic are broken, Wolf Scouts are broken, well, fine, but the XP26s, they're not. Like, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that they're broken. You're going to have a hard time convincing me that Raveners are broken, or Battleclade are broken. And, like, you're going to have a really hard time convincing me the same of Wreckers or Rattlings, or, or Plague Marines or Angels of Death. So, like, I think as much as like, it's good to be outrageous, and it's good to say, yeah, these teams are indicative of a problem. I'm not too sure there is necessarily as big a problem as people make out there potentially to be. And like, I just want to say, like, the reason why I think it's important from my perspective is I just want to get people excited about the game, and I want to get people excited about playing Killteam. I want to get people into the Killteam. And if you just tell them that there's problems all the time, and the narrative is, hey, there's this issue, and unless these things are fixed, there's no point even playing, and it's becoming really toxic because of this, that, and the other. Like, I personally don't see that world, right? Like, and maybe it's me living in Cloud Cuckoo Land, and I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, saying that Canoptic Circle and Wolf Scout shouldn't be toned down. Absolutely, they should be toned down. But I just think that, like, we want to try and breathe like that atmosphere of, hey, come in and play Killteam. It's a great game. Like, good players will win. That's kind of always been the case. And I think a lot of people have missed that. Like, if you get good at Killteam, you're more likely to win. Like, if you turn up with Nemesis Claw to an event and you are a very good player, you are more likely to win than a very bad player turning up with Canoptic Circle or Wolf Scouts. Like, that's just straight fact. It's not like you can run a meta list and just say, hey, I picked up the right team, and therefore immediately I'm gonna do well. Now, obviously, it's gonna be easier to win with the stronger teams, in my opinion, but you still need to be a good player, and therefore, I just want to be, like, careful of what we put out as a narrative, because I think we should be positive about the game. And one of the main positives I would say is, even if these teams are problematic, like, Games Workshop has been pretty consistent. They have said, since the edition starts, every 3 months we're going to release a balanced data slate, and every 3 months they've released the balanced data slate, and they have, constantly gone after the problems and buff teams and nerf teams and that sort of stuff. And I talked at the last data slate how I didn't like the fact that it was just like a nerf data slate. There wasn't enough of a buff, but generally, like, I think they've got it. They will do these changes. Like, at some point down the line, like, these problematic teams won't be problematic anymore. Like, look at Sanctifiers; they're not problematic anymore. Like, they will get hit. Now, does it take too long? Sure, maybe. But you don't want to, like, this is an unwinnable scenario, right? Like, oh, hey, I just painted up this team. I learned all their rules, and I made, like, this team. I really enjoy it, and I've just learned how to play them. And someone says, no, and actually none of the rules work that way anymore because the data slate's just come out. And so you do have to, like, give people enough time to play, right? Because if it's too frequent, then the game becomes unmanageable, right? Like, if you're planning to go to an event next weekend and the rules change twice between now and then, like, you're not going to be like, oh, like, how do I keep track of this? If you're a casual player, you don't want that much frequency of change. And competitive players will say, oh yeah, but it's really good for the meta. It's really good for the meta to have all these changes. It needs to be instantaneous and all that sort of stuff. But actually, we want the game to be accessible. We want people to be able to turn up, get a team, paint them, put them together, and play them. And then once a quarter, update their rules, and then they can stay with it and they can engage with it. So I'm just saying, like, I think as a narrative, as a community, we should probably be, like, pretty positive that the game is consistently being balanced. It's a good tempo of balance, and actually I don't think it's as much of a problem as is. Now, I'm going to be absolutely slayed in the comments for trying to be positive about the game rather than negative. And I understand that outrage sells, right? Everyone wants to be outraged. Everyone wants to have a good rant and all that sort of stuff. So please feel free to do so. Use the comment box as your vent as to tell me why I'm wrong, but maybe also just use it as an opportunity to say what you think has been a good thing about the game, right? Like, maybe we can try and put the positive spin on Killteam again and say, hey, what I've really enjoyed about this edition is this. What I've really enjoyed about the latest data slate and changes that have come out is this. The new teams, I've enjoyed them because they've really captured this element of the team that I wanted it to, and I think they're really fun. Like, let's try and focus more on the positives and get people more excited about playing Killteam, rather than just telling them why it's bad and why they shouldn't be excited playing Killteam. Because I still think it's one of the best games that GW make. It still enthuses me and engages me as a player. And I think that the game is fun. I think Improved Ops is a fantastic change. I think all these things are really good. And I don't think that telling people that we're in a power creep meta and that if they buy a box set, it's going to be redundant 3 months later is helpful, because you could have told someone that was playing Wreckers when they bought it that team was a casino team. There was no point playing it, and they would never do well with them. And then actually people are doing absolutely crushing it with Wreckers. It's like you can say the same thing for Vespid, right? Like if you're a Vespid player and you just really like the aesthetics of Vespid, and someone says, hey, there's no point playing Vespid because they'll never be good. And actually right now Vespid are doing like pretty well. They're on a 51% win rate and they're placing like 19%. Like they're doing okay because they've been consistently helped and improved along the way. And I think if we do that, like I think that's going to be better for the community. And I think we can all take a little bit of responsibility in how we improve our local communities by spreading positive vibes, not by spreading negative vibes, right? But maybe that's just me trying to be a bit festive before Christmas. So as I said, I stand by to be called a GW shill that is trying to be too happy about the game and trying to find too many positives in clearly what is an awful position. But I will be going to events and I'll be having fun and I'll be taking a team that I want to play, and I'll just be going there for the social vibes that it is. And if I lose to Wolf Scouts, hey, I lose to Wolf Scouts. If I lose to Knoptech, hey, I lose to Knoptech. Mandrakes can beat me. Actually, I really don't like playing against Mandrakes, but that's a separate thing. It's just I had a bad experience once. I'm jesting, but like I don't mind, right? It's like it's a game. It was supposed to be enjoying it. It's supposed to be engaging it, and hopefully, as I said, good players will continue to perform well with whatever team that they play, and good players can pick up new teams and enjoy new things, right? Like we don't have to play thing that we think is particularly strong, and even if they do, hey, in a few months' time, it probably ain't going to be that strong anymore. So expect that change to come. That's it from me. Hopefully that's kind of ending on a positive. I want it to be a positive. It's a good game. It's a great game. We have loads of fun. Remember why you go to the games in the first place. It's not to win them. It's to have a social interaction with another person, and that itself is the win, right? So you can win all 4 games by just going and having fun. As I said, drop the positive vibes in the comments below, right? What is the good things about this edition? What have you really enjoyed? What are the changes that you like? What changes do you want to see? What would be good for this edition? And like, how do we make Killteam continue to be the best Games Workshop game going forwards? How do we get more people engaged, more people playing, and more people enjoying what I think is an incredibly awesome game? Let's spread some positive vibes and tell people it's not all doom and gloom. And on that festive note, I'll end, and I'll see you all next week. Take it easy.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we have a Patreon where you can get exclusive access to all our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.